is.
All right, man.
We've clapped. We've applauded together. And
Yes.
now we're officially documenting ourselves in real time.
Fantastic. Thank you for asking me to come over to document me
You're welcome.
like a creature.
Yeah, you're like my the bird I've been trying to watch all my life.
Speaking of creature, can I start off with something that I learned yesterday?
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know if this is relevant to the general premise of your podcast.
It's okay.
But apparently in the 1980s, there were these seals that were like washed up on the shore of Maine or something, and they needed to be rehabilitated because they were all anemic, and they were sent to a rehabilitation center in the Bronx, where they eventually trained them to like work with the NYPD. And so and so there was like a period of time where the NYPD literally had like a SEAL unit that they would use for like diving missions.
The Navy SEAL.
No, like animal seals, like the kind of seals that you would see on like Planet Earth, the show.
Did they
and also the planet.
Have you heard of it? Did they succeed in
I don't know. I
accomplishing anything?
learned this honestly just watching a TikTok, but I thought it was really interesting.
When did they disband the SEAL unit?
I don't know. It was like the SEAL unit, and it was like, oh, the Bronx NYPD SEALs of 1987. Just starting off your podcast with immediate misinformation.
That's
Although
how,
I'm quite,
this is
I
clickbait.
want to believe that it's true.
Me too.
And that's how I navigate my entire life with all information that I encounter. If I want to believe it to be true, then it is.
I think that's a beautiful way to live life.
Yeah,
Causes
it's
no
what I teach my
problems
students
in your
to.
relationships. Well, with that said, we should introduce who you are.
Yeah.
So, for all of you listening, staring at me right now, this is Grant. Hi, Grant.
Hey.
Grant Crawford, Dr. Grant Crawford, PhD. One of my best friends in the world. We've known each other for, 12 or 13 years or something now. One of my favorite minds out there. But yeah, tell us a little about us. Tell me right now, and hopefully the 5 people who will listen to this, what you do, who you are. What makes Grant tick?
What makes Grant tick? Well, what I do is I teach at a university. I teach English and literature classes and also cultural studies classes. So anything from writing, literary text to film studies classes or anything like that. But primarily now I've been spending my time trying to like update that set of content for like the modern world with the substack Fugitive Margins that I recently launched. So
subtle
it
plug. We'll talk about that later too. But yeah, it's Fugitive Margins. But hold on, continue on that set, because you kind of wrote your dissertation on that concept, right? About trying to like bring the academic space into the technological realm in terms of like,
well, the
what you
dissertation that I wrote. So I just finished my PhD in May. I defended my dissertation, and the dissertation was largely about how we've now entered into a space where there's like multimodal forms of communication that we're engaging with every day. And so much so that the way that we communicate is largely beyond just text-based now. And it's moved into a world that is fundamentally multimodal, right? So like on a video like this that somebody's watching on YouTube, they will see the video content. They might be listening on a podcast as well, but if they're watching on YouTube, they'll see the video content. Perhaps they'll put closed captioning on. You might layer music over it. And that's most content these days. Like that's how information is disseminated, right? And yet the way that we teach students how to communicate and convey their ideas is still largely text-based. It's changing a bit. But if you look at the numbers of the number of young people that read versus the number of young people that consume their information via like audio or video form or a combination of both, it's like this trajectory, just opposite trajectories. You know, like people don't read books anymore. They're largely consuming information through these multimodal sources, whether it's a combination of audio, video, image, whatever. And yet, like, our general education system has not caught up to that. And, you know, I think it's not surprising that in this world where most of the ways in which people are consuming information and conveying information outside of the education system looks so different than what they're being asked to do in the classroom, it's not surprising that like our reading and literacy levels are like just plummeting. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the dissertation itself revolved around like that's the core premise of like how can we update our college writing classes to embed things like this, like more audio essays, podcasts, sonic rhetoric, exploring how to use sound to convey meaning. But I think it's part of like this broader conversation of like, how do we train ourselves to be communicators in this multimodal world that we're now in?
Can you expand on that? Train ourselves to be multimodal communicators?
Basically, all it means is like, how can we train ourselves to think about the way that we communicate out into the world with more than just a text-based form of communication,
which is pretty much all
it's everything
that academia is prioritizing.
I mean, yeah, if you look at like the general education and like the curriculum that our country follows on like a K through 12 scale, it's like they're teaching students how to read and write and do math, right? I'm primarily focused on like the reading and writing part. But I think there's probably like a decent hypothesis somewhere in there where it's like part of the reason why like reading and literacy levels are so low is because that is not how young people are conditioned to communicate and also receive ideas in the world that they're in these days. They're just not reading and they're not writing as much. They are writing, but they're doing it in conjunction with like these other modalities of communication, right? So it's like infographics, it's like YouTube videos, it's visual arts, you know.
Is that objectively a bad thing, or are we looking at that in like a somewhat archaic way, and that there's like another way to communicate information just as clearly that we're sort of exploring and
I think that question is like up for grabs. Like I feel like we're like at the very start of like a post like literate world, because you don't necessarily have to be like, it's weird, like we like the way that history has unfolded is like nobody knew how to read pre like 1850s, and then there was like the mass production of text where people were actually able to like access like cheap forms of literary texts and magazines and things like that. The broader population learned how to read, and now we've entered a phase where like people actually don't need to read anymore to consume information. And so yeah, we're like at the start of this age where like for the first time in like well over 100 years, you don't have to know how to read to like engage with like the information landscape that we're in,
and to be successful
at the same time. Like there's plenty of like studies that show that like reading and writing are like tremendously beneficial to like the brain and how we like organize our thoughts and emotions and like convey our own ideas. So I think that it's not something that's going to become obsolete. I just think we need to like reframe the utility of it, you know, and make it known that like this isn't necessarily going to be like the primary way in which you communicate in this new world that we're in, but there's all these like secondary benefits to learning how to read and write, you know, like learning how to write.
So it's going to become more like a hobby.
Well, not even like a hobby. It's just like, how do you sell it to students, you know, especially, I mean, we haven't even started talking about the fact that you can prompt an AI now and it's going to produce a piece of writing that's for a lot of people going to be better than what they can produce on their own. And so we have like these two things happening at the same time, right? It's like you can participate as a citizen and consume information without necessarily like going through the curriculum that you'd have to go through in the past to be like a critical reader and writer. And you also have this technology now that can produce writing for you. And like those two things converging right now, like we're entering a world in which like for the first time in like a century, there's a big question mark over like the utility of these things. And what I'm saying is like the selling point has to be less like the actual like, yes, you're learning how to write in order to, I don't know, write an email or write like a business report. You're learning how to write because writing is how like you organize your thoughts, and your brain is very messy. You know, like this is how I talk to students about writing, like at a first year college level. It's like you think about your, actually we could show this to the camera. We have this cat string here, but this is kind of like a visual that I use, right? Like not this specific cat string,
This
but
one
something
that he
like
brings
this,
everywhere.
like this is your brain, right? It's all like jumbled up, and these are all the thoughts, like how they exist in your head before you get them out on your page. And the process of writing is like detangling it, right, and organizing your ideas over time. And so like that's the utility of learning how to write. I don't know.
It sounds to me like there is a world wherein this post-literate society can be just as functionally, stable as the current society is now, and this won't be as important. But what it sounds like to me is that like the people who are always most successful, like the people who are in charge or most successful in whatever business or industry that they're in, are always going to have these skills that seemingly younger generations are kind of not prioritizing anymore.
Yeah. It's like you're still going to need like you're still going to need to learn how to read and write to be probably as successful as possible in a variety of fields, even if you don't need it in the same way to kind of like enter certain discourses and conversations in the way that you used to, if that makes sense.
Well, to be like useful or to make any kind of like palpable impact on a conversation, you'll have to have it. But if you want to enter it without it, you can.
Yeah.
Like
It's more of, I guess like the way that we're talking about it now, it's more like you can consume information, but you still can't necessarily like produce information.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Like that, drawing that distinction of like,
well,
we're
it
entering
sounds
a
like
world.
a consolidation of power is what it sounds like. It sounds like that the sort of building of AI coupled with this sort of lack of interest in these up until now fundamental necessary skills for success at the same time is going to create like a bottleneck of people who get through and become the ones who call the shots, and then all of the other people, it's like kind of turning back into like a, like the king and the peasant kind of
And I don't want to make it sound like I think that like learning to read and write is not an important thing.
Well, you're not. I don't think you're making it sound that way, but I think you're making it sound like it's not as clearly important because we have made it, like if you have like a swimming pool and everybody, every kid who doesn't know how to swim wants to be able to swim in the deep end of the swimming pool, but they don't know how to swim, so they always like stay in the shallow end. Yeah. But we've made the shallow end like so big in the swimming pool that so many people can hang out in the shallow end and have a great time. Yeah. That the desire to learn how to be in the deep end has kind of been diminished. Yeah. So everyone just kind of hangs out in the shallow end now, and it's totally fine. And I think that culturally,
and I think we're gonna see that like across like it like. Writing seems like it's the most obvious because these chatbots are text-based, and for a very long time, I feel like the way in which humans have thought about themselves as like distinct creatures is our ability to write and communicate and like rationalize and reason. But I think we're going to see like the illustration that you just painted with the swimming pool, like that's going to be applied to everything very soon, right? Like AI is generally, we're seeing it most obviously in how it's like removing friction between like one's ability to produce a piece of writing, but it's going to remove that friction from like all different kinds of forms of production, whether it's like art, music, like across the board. So this world that AI is dragging us into is one in which, yes, we're like extending this, like, is the deep end even going to exist anymore? Because we don't need it to
What's the
exist.
Point in going there?
What's the point of learning how to swim if I don't know, this robot can move our arms for us, or everybody has floaties, or whatever you want to say.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I mean, I feel that all the time. Just even, and maybe this is a bit of a pivot, but like even the dawn of TV in the home, or just being able to like sit around and listen to an audiobook or the radio or anything as it's continued throughout the last like 50 70 years of technological evolution. Like people have had the opportunity to become so comfortable having their information spoon-fed to them
yeah,
that there's no need anymore to have to aspire to like become a craftsman in anything, be it something like an intellectual pursuit
Yeah.
or any other kind of pursuit, because you
Yeah.
don't really need to do it to be comfortable. And
Yeah.
like, this, and I don't mean to use the term maybe incorrectly, but this like sort of, the socialist utopia idea of like everybody will have all of their foundational needs met and they'll be comfortable and safe and whatever. But to me, it's very much like we're seeing needs be met in all these little sort of small areas, and the more that they're met, the more complacent we become, and we no longer have like the interest in pursuing anything greater, because why? Like you can just go home and turn on your TV and turn your lights on and have a warm
Yeah.
bed and heat and food in your fridge.
Yeah.
So you're fine,
Yeah.
And so like this idea of college and higher learning,
Yeah.
that for a number of reasons has sort of had a bad taste in everyone's mouth culturally over the last like 10 years.
Yeah.
Not the least of which is just how much money they steal from you in order for you to be there. But slowly but surely, I can only speak for I guess Americans, but like America is sort of getting this really bad taste in their mouth about college, and like I don't know how much longer university is going to be a norm amongst like any tier of our society.
One of the problems with universities right now, and we can sort of like draw a link here actually with like AI, is that universities have become like so big and so bureaucratic that it's very difficult for them to be nimble and pivot in how they design curriculum and think through like what should the learning outcomes be of a student attending our university.
You're turning around an aircraft carrier.
Yeah, and it's like, from the inside you see it happen in real time of like how many different meetings and panels and like decision making processes have to take place just to make a small curriculum change. And it's like that doesn't work in an environment where like AI has just like cloaked the entire world over the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And so I guess part of what I'm like describing is like is that disconnect, right? Like just going back to when I was describing my dissertation, it's like you have these college freshman level writing classes that have not been updated to teach students what should a writing class be in an AI mediated world that can write for you. I have opinions on that. Like I think it needs to pivot more again into like the multimodal communication, thinking in these different modalities, but also these classes evolving into something that's more like a critical thinking class, like a philosophy class for like, okay, if all of these bots are going to be producing our writing for us, what do we have to do? We have to know how to sift through that information, right? And we also still need to know how to do some baseline writing and like prompting, and also like how to refine the writing that the AI spits back at us. But anyway, so one of the problems is, yes, like universities are like too big and too bureaucratic to like self-correct and change as things change so rapidly in the world that we live in today. There was a second thing I was going to say. And so now you have this moment where universities just, because of the way they operate, cannot be nimble enough to make their education seem and feel relevant to students. And at the same time, so basically the education that students are receiving now is not the education that they need for the world that they're moving into. And at the same time, tuition is higher than it's ever been,
Yeah.
right? And so you have these two things happening at once. It's like, I'm going to school, I'm signing my life away, basically, depending on the school I go to. But if you're going to a private school in the United States and you're like an average US citizen, that's an average of like at least 40,000 in loans, and for a lot of people much more than that.
Yeah, I mean upwards of $200,000 in
Right.
loans, depending on where you're going.
So now imagine you're this student, right? And you're entering into this school and you're in these classes that feel like they have not been modified for the world that we're moving into. You know, it's like, what is the purpose of paying all of this money? You know, not to mention like the broader economic currents and influence of what AI is going to have on many of the sectors that one currently goes to higher education for. You know, like AI is going to be, in the short term, far more impactful, I think, on like these administrative kind of like HRE office jobs that for whatever reason we've decided you need a college degree for, right?
Yeah.
And you're seeing this in the numbers, right? Like enrollment is down, more people are going to trade school. And so, yeah, I don't know where universities go and what they look like in 5 to 10 years, but there's this intersection of all of these different like really big things happening right now that if nothing changes, like I don't see enrollment staying up, and there's still being a demand for college in the way there has been for like the last 30 or 40 years.
Yeah. Well, and just the general democratization of like information access. Like there's
Totally.
you know, there's that
Yeah.
famous quote that I'll certainly bastardize from Good Will Hunting, where he says like, you know, why would I spend $100,000 in tuition for the same education I could get for like
That's right.
$5 in late fees at the
That's
local
right.
library,
Yeah.
or whatever it is that Matt Damon says. But like that idea now, I mean, everything that I have learned in academic space, I could easily have further learned on YouTube, you
Right.
know, or like,
Right.
you know, there's the Peterson Academy or whatever that they, you know, I for whatever anyone thinks of Jordan Peterson, like whatever this new idea of this Peterson Academy thing is I think like the new trajectory for higher education.
Yeah.
You know, I mean the tuition is like $400 a semester,
Yeah.
or a year or
Yeah.
something. Like it's so affordable, and
Yeah.
it's lectures from some of the most accomplished people in whatever whatever field that they're in. So I mean, I don't know what it looks like, but I feel like the balloon is deflating now. The excitement is going away. Nobody needs it other than for like a cultural, you know, what's the term, like coming of man, or what is the phrase people use? Like
Coming of age.
Coming of age. Thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah, like a coming of age chapter in your life where
Right.
like going to college is like
Right.
very important for learning how to develop adult relationships at a young age
Yeah.
and all those things. But even at that point, that's not worth $200,000.
Exactly.
Like you can do that anyway.
Yeah. Something's got to give. And the students know it too. Like you get the sense, like even if they don't explicitly state it, like the impression is, yeah, again, like going back and trying to empathize with these students, like, okay, I was just assigned an assignment. I could do the assignment, or I could outsource it to an AI and get an A on it anyway.
Yeah.
And, you know, humans are kind of naturally built for the path of least resistance.
Do you find as a professor that it's becoming harder and harder to tell if something has been modified or produced entirely by AI? Or is it clear to you still?
It's getting harder to tell, yeah, because it was pretty easy to tell at first, because there were these certain signs that were like dead giveaways. Like ChatGPT loves using like the long dash. Like whenever you use it doesn't use the shorter dash, it uses the longer one, and it uses it a lot. And when it first came out a couple of years ago, the kind of writing that it was producing was like hyper structured and clearly robotic sounding. Like that was the voice of it. It's gotten like worlds better since then. And so I would say it is largely undetectable, and it's undetectable enough that you can't make a credible case anymore. Like, you can't prove it. You know what I mean? The only way that you could prove it is sometimes there are slip ups where like the bot will like hallucinate like broad information. Like, I had a student years ago in one of my classes, and we were reading a novel. It's called How to Get Filthy Rich in Rising Asia, and it's like an amazing book. But they just had like a reading response, like a reflection on one of the chapters, and I received this submission that had just made up characters. They were like, yeah, like it was like then the uncle goes to the grocery store and like brings home these items, and I was like, wait a second, what? And so like that will happen, and then that's a tell. And then when you have a bunch of students responding to the same prompt, if many of them are using an AI, the prompt will obviously give the same answer.
Yeah,
and so that's a tell
like,
as well.
Yeah.
Like in the film classes that I teach, I notice it in those like if we have like a discussion board. Like, I teach a film class on like AI in film, and I have like discussion board questions on a film like Her, a Spike Jonze film.
That's funny.
Yeah. And you'll notice like they'll always use the same language and pay attention to the same details in the film when constructing their analysis, you know, and it's very clear that it's just all being derived from an AI giving them the response.
Everyone talked about this particular camera angle.
Exactly.
Up,
There's like, there's too much consistency. It's like, unless you all got together and like spoke about this, which I don't think you probably did because it's like homework. An AI. But what I would say, the larger trend is that like professors, myself, and other like educators that I've spoken to, there's like an AI fatigue because there was this period of time from like 2022 when ChatGPT first came out to like, I would say late 2023, where everybody was putting a lot of effort into trying to distinguish what was AI versus student writing.
Yeah.
And that takes a really long time, right? Because instead of now just grading a paper, which takes long enough as is, now you're applying this like secondary layer of criticism of like, is this AI? Is this not AI? Yeah, exactly. And that lasted for like 2 years. And then I think everybody's just kind of burnt out now. And it's kind of like, well, whether it is or it isn't, like, it's not my problem, right? Like, as a student, like, if you want to make that decision, that's your decision to make. You're not going to, you know, necessarily take away from this class what I would hope for you to take away, but you're an adult, you know, you can make a decision. But again, this feeds back into this broader conversation that we're having, which is, what is the point of an education now when the education can be outsourced to an AI? And how do we talk to students about that?
Yeah.
You know, because if we want students to do their own work, we have to sell education as something that is actually useful for them. And I don't think anybody has figured out exactly how to do that yet.
Do you have a pitch?
Do I have a pitch?
For how one might do that, or how you do that to your current students?
I mean, again, I would just say, back to what I was saying before, like, if you want to be an empowered citizen in our society that has like your own voice, and you want to formulate your own thoughts, and you don't want to be a receiver or a sheep just following the herd, you need to learn how to critically think. You learn how to critically think by learning how to read a variety of opinions, criticize those opinions, learning things like rhetoric across all different rhetorical fields, right? Whether it's like verbal or written rhetoric, sonic rhetoric, visual rhetoric, trying to kind of analyze and critique the world around you, like not taking anything just as is, but always kind of questioning, right? That is that's the skill set that I think you want to take away from like a liberal arts education, is like this constant questioning of the world around you, not taking anything for granted, using that questioning as like a starting point for developing your own voice and opinions on a subject. That's what I would say. But again, it's like, that's kind of always been the
core principle of higher education.
Exactly.
I mean,
but it's fallen so to the wayside over the
Yeah.
last.
Well, I think
Yeah.
too that outside of just academia and like, economic uncertainty, the housing issues, the fact that nobody in our age demographic can afford any kind of stability in
Yeah.
their own future. There's no way to really, build generational wealth for people in our age demographic now. But there's also like, because of all of this sort of existential dread and uncertainty about what's going to go on 10 years from now, 20 years from now for our community, coupled with the barrier to entry that is like the high tuitions at all these higher education
Yeah.
facilities, and the immediate gratification of social media, and
Yeah.
how not only the immediate gratification of like engaging with social media, but at the same time like the access to the lottery of becoming an influencer, getting these sponsorships, being able to
Yeah.
make
Right.
an exorbitant amount of money in a very small
Yeah.
period of time, producing very little substantive content.
Yeah.
Everybody who's in that anxious and stressed space of the instability and the existential dread looks to that like, all right, well, fuck it then. I'm not
Right.
going to spend 10 years getting a
Exactly.
degree to become something that I
Right.
can, have my
To like
diploma
enter
and
like a
be
theoretical middle class or like an upper middle class.
I'm
that
just gonna
doesn't
like get
exist
my
anymore.
bag, and I'm
Yeah.
gonna make vacuous content and shill for companies'
Yeah.
products, and they're gonna give me a lot of money if I can get a lot of people to look at me. I'll be as
Yeah.
loud and controversial as possible.
Yeah.
And if I can get enough eyes, then they'll give me money. I can get a quick 20 million, and then I
Yeah.
can buy a place
Yeah.
anywhere and not be a part of the game anymore.
Yeah.
And I think that most people's desire to succeed now is just so they can like get out of the game, because it's
Yeah.
the long-term haul to be a part of what you have just entered with your PhD is terrifying to people. And
Yeah.
if you don't have
Well, especially when there's not a
scholarships you've gotten-
path in front of you as well. Like to
Yeah.
what end? You know,
Yeah.
like you were just describing. It's like this is like this. It's the social contract breaking down, like
Yeah,
before our eyes, right?
the white picket fence.
Yeah,
no longer
exactly.
exists.
Like, we used to, or at least when I was growing up, which was not that long ago, college and making certain life choices, maybe not even college, but certain life choices will result in certain tangible results that will provide you a, a steady lifestyle at the very least. And that has been completely like eradicated. Like that is not a for sure outcome based on the choices you can make anymore. You
Yeah.
can make all of the right choices in our society now and still end up in a place where you are paycheck to paycheck, struggling to get by, disrespected by your employer, obviously not valued by your employer.
Yeah.
It's the
Highly
social
replaceable.
yeah. And I think that you're right to like identify this at the same time, right? So we have like this happening over here, the social contract just like decaying before our eyes, and enough information out there to know that like that's the case,
Yeah.
right? Like we live in a world now where we have access to information. You can no longer sell a fake tale, right?
Yeah, you can't convince the population.
Exactly. And then on the other side of things, like you said, you have social media and these accounts that are just, their entire existence is to showcase these lifestyles that also aren't achievable.
And
You know what I mean?
In many cases, not even real for the
Right.
people
Yeah.
posting them.
Right. Yeah. So
But-
like those success stories of social media and influencers, like those are the exception. Those are
Yeah.
not. It's not like if you post every day on social media or you make the best content ever, you're going to end up being one of those people that have like broken out of the system, right? That is also not a path for success. Like you use the word lottery, it is a lottery, right?
Yeah.
Your chances of that are slim. And so I have a lot of empathy and sympathy for younger people these days. I actually feel like our age group, like I'm 32, you're 31.
Yeah.
We sort of are like right on the cusp of like having not fallen into like that category necessarily. Like we
Yeah.
had enough time before certain things have happened to sort of like set ourselves up at least with some degree of stability.
Yeah.
But like 17 and 18-year-olds these days, I just feel a tremendous amount of sympathy and concern for a variety of reasons, like what we're describing. But
well, I mean, it's even like, you think about the idols that we had as kids.
yeah, like George Bush,
George Bush,
Dick Cheney,
just the greatest
Rest in
guy.
peace.
Rest in peace.
Yeah.
Dick. My best friend. I used to keep a picture of him underneath my pillow when I was in 6th grade.
Yeah, on when you lost the tooth.
Yeah, Dick Cheney would come in and take my tooth and leave me a warhead,
a bomb.
He was such a nice guy.
Yeah,
I know. I had to contribute to the military-industrial complex somehow.
Dick Cheney is the tooth fairy.
Dude,
This
is a theory that I will push if anyone wants to be a part of it.
Yeah.
Dick Cheney was the tooth fairy, and the tooth fairy has died.
Anyway,
the idols that we had, the people that we had to look up to as children, were Derek Jeter and like athletes who were very successful in whatever play, or celebrities and actors that were really successful and important to, the Britney Spears of the 2000s and, Aaron Carter, whoever, I don't know, trying to go back to that time, Justin Timberlake, whatever.
Yeah.
But all of them were examples of people who worked very, very hard at a thing and became very good at it, or had like an exceptional talent and were able to nurture that talent. And now, like some of my younger cousins who are 12, 13, 14 years old, the people that they look up to are TikTokers.
right?
And they're not exceptionally talented people. Like they're not people that built, for whatever anyone's going to say about Britney Spears and what has happened to her, since her fall from celebrity.
Yeah,
No one can say she wasn't an exceptionally talented singer and dancer and performer.
yeah,
And, or, you look at Tiger Woods or whoever, like it's all like an exceptional talent met with like so much hard work.
yeah,
And then given all of the rewards by the culture, and all of us as children were looking at that and saying like, oh my God, like I want to be a rapper. I want to be a musician. I want to be an athlete. I want to be in the NFL. I want to be an actor. And now people just want to be a TikToker, or they want to be whatever they can be. They're looking at, the Kardashians and saying like, I could sell that product.
yeah.
and
No,
look
totally.
hot.
And I mean, I think that just circles back around to what we were talking about earlier about how like AI is currently and will continue to like remove friction between like developing a skill set and like working on something. I just think the technology age that we've grown up in has also done that, broadly speaking. It's made it such that people can become an overnight success without necessarily having to like harness a skill or become like a master in some kind of area. And I think that trend is going to continue. But again, it can't be looked at as like this thing that's happening in isolation. It's happening at the same time that like inequality is like greater than it's ever been, and class stratification is greater than it's ever been. You can't have these two, like, to me, it's like a perfect picture. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not surprised at all with the development of these technologies, removing friction, making everything much easier to produce. It started with Google. Now we have AI. You don't necessarily have to learn everything. We can kind of just take in information when we need it rather than retain it. And at the same time, you have these different paths that have been presented to young people that were once at least somewhat guaranteed for stability, and now they're not. So it's like, I'm just not surprised by this picture whatsoever.
And the seeming uselessness of any, degree or something in the face of this is, that you can see how the motivation of any kid. And I feel it even in myself at 31. Like my motivation to be successful in the things that I've spent the last 20 years working toward has in some ways diminished because I don't see the path anymore, because
Yeah.
I'm watching the Bering Land Bridge start to melt again, and I can't get across the fucking water
Right,
anymore.
right, yeah.
And I'm looking and trying to figure out how to make it work.
Right.
Is it podcasting? Is it still acting? Is it art? Is
Right.
it any of the things that I do that I am passionate about and have like built a skill set and a craft in?
Yeah.
Where do I take them?
Right.
But fortunately for people in our age, like you were saying before, we had the luxury of crafting skills before we realized that there aren't enough pots to
Yeah.
plant in.
Yeah.
But so now we have the burden of trying to figure out where to plant skills we already have.
Yeah.
Where kids younger than us are saying, well, why even craft the skill at
Yeah.
all?
Yeah.
You know?
And it's reflected in the jobs now, over the last, not to like drift so far in conversation into economics.
No, this will go wherever it
but
goes.
the job reports over the last year, there's been the greatest decrease. Like the October jobs report just came out a couple of days ago. It was the largest decrease in jobs in October since like 2003. And so far this year, it's like the greatest decrease of jobs since 2009. I might have those reversed the years, but that's just to say that like job openings and availability are plummeting right now for a variety of reasons. AI, tariffs, whatever. But if you look at the data, the jobs that are going away are entry level jobs.
Yeah.
Right. So that just speaks to kind of what you're saying in like a really practical day-to-day way, which is like, if you are 32, you've probably had enough time in a role that you have a job.
Yeah.
Right. And you have enough experience under your belt, like on the floor in whatever you do, that you can apply for non-entry level jobs.
Yeah.
But what if you're one of these students and you're entering the workforce and all these jobs are saying we want 7 to 8 years experience, or we're not even going to look at your resume?
Yeah.
What do you do? It's messed up. It's messed up.
Yeah. It's scary, dude. And
Yeah.
I talked with Ryan on the last episode, not as much about this, but kind of about like what COVID did to the communal mindset from industry to industry about where does one spend one's time
Yeah.
when you are in the face of a global pandemic
Yeah.
and everything is shut down and you're stuck at home and you can't work, and you suddenly realize that you've spent a large minority of your life giving yourself to a job that you don't like, and then you're put into a space where the government's giving you enough money to subsist for
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
couple months, and you don't have to go do that thing you hate, and you're spending time with your young kids, or you're spending time with your wife again after 10 years of having to work all the time, or whatever it is. You're suddenly with yourself again, and you pick up a hobby that
Yeah.
that gives you joy, and then the world opens up again, and you say, I don't really want to do that anymore. Like
Yeah.
I had this like free moment where the whole
Yeah.
world was put on pause, and I got to figure out what I like,
Yeah.
and I don't want to go back to that. We've watched, a large portion of the acting community left during COVID because, you can't afford it. But a large portion of people like entered the acting world during that period as well, because
Yeah.
they had the opportunity to say, well, I'm going to stimulate myself creatively, as opposed to only worry about this benign contribution I'm making to some company's bottom line
Yeah.
that is not giving back to me and my family at all.
Yeah.
And then you give yourself that space, and then all of a sudden when it comes back, you're like, I don't want to do that
Yeah.
anymore. And coinciding with the whole AI thing and the fact that so much automation is joining our culture now, people's sense of value has to be derived from something other than whatever job they have now,
Yeah.
because it's disappearing before our eyes. It's the fog, fading
Yeah.
from the lake as the sun goes up.
Yeah.
You get that 10 minutes where you're like, wow, it's really nice, and then it's gone.
I actually can't believe how quickly things got back to normal. There was a
After the
point during
lockdowns.
COVID where the way things were going, you would think that the world would never agree to go back to the way that things were.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show that, if it's the difference between food on the table and not, like, you're gonna go back to the way things were.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
the powers that be demand that you're in the office 5 days a week. You're in the office 5 days a week.
And you watch so many companies do it, like, all right, you can keep working from home for a while, then we're going to do 2 days in the office, and then we're going to do like 3 or 4 days in the office, but you can still have Mondays and Fridays at home.
Yeah.
And then back to 5 days in the office after a year or two. And people just slowly get accustomed to, like, all right, I can give that.
Yeah.
All right, well, that's fine. I can give one more day. And
Right.
then
Till
you're back to
eventually
normal
it's
again.
just, yeah. Like,
And everybody gives
life
up on the control that they had over their own lives again.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. But I do think that I'm not surprised. I guess I am a little surprised to hear that people entered the acting world during COVID.
Yeah. I mean, a small percentage, but
Yeah.
a notable percentage, you know?
Yeah.
People did kind of go in and say, well, you know, I spent the last 20 years doing this thing that I don't like as a, you know, whatever, a foreman on construction sites or whatever, and I don't want to do it anymore, and I've made enough money that I can take a little time off.
Yeah.
I'm going to pursue this creative thing.
Right.
Or like, I'm going to get back into music and start playing gigs in local bars
Yeah.
again. Or like, you know, so many things, empty nesters who are like, you know what, I don't really want to do this. I don't need to do this. I'm 10 years away from Social Security. I'm going to just start doing
Yeah.
what I want again.
What do you think? Do you think the role of an actor? You may have spoken about this with Ryan, but the role of an actor is even going to be a thing in 5 or 10 years?
You know, it's scary to think about in the position that I'm in, because I've yet to I make a living as an actor enough that I can pay my rent and have you know, some semblance of a life in New York City.
Yeah.
But I am by no means like set as an actor. So it's scary to face this sort of oncoming tsunami of automation in performances. I mean, I don't know if you saw this, I forgot her name, Tilly.
Yes, I know what you're referring to.
Whatever the fuck.
The AI actress
AI
that was
actress.
signed to an agency.
Yeah, well, I actually, maybe you know more than I do. I know that she was going to be signed to an agency, and basically the entire acting community and most agencies were like, whatever agency signs this AI performer will be blacklisted.
Oh, really?
From the community.
No, I didn't know that.
Actors were like, I'll never work with them. Production.
That's not a
companies were like,
long-term
"We will not hire this
solution,
person."
though.
No,
right?
that is a resistance to an inevitable reality.
Yeah.
You know, and I work in the video game world. I do motion capture for video games.
Yeah.
All of my voice, all of my physical movement has been recorded and is owned for years. I've been doing this, and they own that information.
Yeah.
And if they wanted to create a digital replica of me that moves exactly how I move, speaks how I speak, sounds how I sound, even maybe makes some crude map of similar choices that I would make in scenes after 6 years of recording my decisions.
Right.
They could.
Right. They could build a predictive model that is.
And there's nothing I
Mickey.
could do about it.
Yeah.
And I know that it wasn't real to me when I started doing that work, because that possibility was so far off in the distance. But it's not anymore. It's very plausible now, and almost inevitable. And
Right.
So I don't know. I think that as a cultural pillar, and as a sort of sounding board for the heartbeat of what a culture stands for, where it's moving, what it's rejecting, I think that the role of a performer or of an actor will always be present.
Yeah.
But I don't know if as an industry it will ever be as lucrative or comfortable to be an artist in that way again than it has been from like the mid 70s up until like the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
That was like the golden era of human performers.
Right.
You know?
I guess if you're like a techno optimist around AI in this field in particular, the argument that you would make is now you might have a studio that's made up of like 5 people that could theoretically produce a film that is on par with a film from 10 years ago that would have needed a crew
Yeah.
of people working, lighting people,
700
CGI
people,
yeah,
2 years,
exactly.
and $100 million.
And
to
so
produce.
the techno-optimist argument would be something like, isn't that great for creative people and filmmakers that don't necessarily have the finances or budget to employ a fleet of 700 people to
Yeah.
produce a film? Now, I don't know. Like, I think that's like way far off as far as like what I'm seeing from like the
Yeah.
slop that AI is producing when it comes to video and film now. But, you know, I guess like if there was an optimistic view, maybe that's it. But I don't know.
My like rebuttal to that perspective would be that when you say, isn't it so great, like, you know, and we'll talk about, we didn't introduce you yet as a musician, but you are a musician and you've played music and made music for a long time. If I said like, isn't it so great that you could so much more easily produce this music,
Yeah.
but the making of the music and the ability to create the thing that you're making has no bearing on your ability to feed yourself with it unless you have an audience who will hear it or watch it. And so like as an actor, as a small studio, an independent studio that can make, using these tools, make projects that are on par with Lord of the Rings or Star Wars, whatever, you know, the new, what's that movie with the long Avatar? You know, to be able to make that, great.
Yeah.
But who's going to watch it?
Right.
Because if I'm throwing it into, you know, it's a drop in the ocean of creative output.
Right.
The democratization of sort of creative expression has gotten to a point where it's almost white noise, you know, now, because there's so much out there that you can't even find the things that you love because it's just an endless sea of content.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it has truly turned, you know, I know that the word content has been like, you know, sort of coined as like a social media related word, but the dilution of art to content is growing, and I think it's spreading. And you know, anyone who's listening to episode 4 knows that this is called Art is Not Sacred, and like a huge part of that to me is that there is a huge difference between making art and making content. And when you feel as though you need to produce any kind of content and shove it out the front door into the ether so someone can find it, so you can be recognized as a thing that exists in this world, it is no longer art, because you're making it on your heels now.
Right.
It's if I don't create this, no one will know I was here.
Right. It's a chore.
You know, it's a chore, and it's a necessity because time and attention has been commodified entirely now.
Yeah.
And if you don't get anyone's time or attention, then you're effectively without value. You know, you're a.
I do kind of fear, like I think it's scary what you're describing of an age of, again, I don't really love the term either, but like independent content creators. Have we entered an age where there's just so much independence and so many content creators that it's just oversaturated?
Yeah.
And we don't know what the next age is going to be. I think that you're probably right, because if you can identify something like that, it's probably too late to make it in the scene. You know what I mean? Because what I was thinking was, you know, like you were saying with a smaller film studio perhaps having at least like the technological capability to produce a high quality film given theoretical AI tools that don't exist yet. But not necessarily having like the economic incentive because of eyes on the film. Like where my mind went was, well, you know, there are other economic models in different industries that have worked out pretty well for independent creators and writers. Like Substack is an example of that, right?
Yeah.
You now have thousands of people on Substack making a good living for themselves as independent writers without the backing of a distribution platform
Yeah.
and advertising revenue from like a behemoth like the New York Times or the Atlantic,
And without a readership that is so large that
right
that they
right.
need to.
And I see that across industries as well. Like I've always said, I know people have their problems with Spotify. There's speaking of AI, there's this whole AI thing on Spotify that maybe we could talk about that I saw this year or this past week. But like Spotify, I've always thought, and streaming platforms have sort of served a similar role in that it's allowed for independent creators to put their content out there and develop a decent enough audience size to the point where maybe they're not like the Rolling Stones or the Chili Peppers, but they can have a living touring clubs around the country and sell merch and so on,
create like
but
a little niche following
right.
for
But
themselves.
I think what you're saying is like, is that age over? Because are there just too many people producing so much that it's an oversaturated market? It's impossible to carve out a niche because you have millions and millions of people all produce, sometimes like hundreds of thousands, maybe millions, producing within the niche that you have identified to try to produce within yourself.
Yeah.
So I don't know what you do with that. I don't know.
I don't know. I mean, I think you're finding out now. I do think that, Substack is an incredible space for people to build a community of loyal supporters who want to see a creator succeed because that creator is creating.
Yeah.
And I think that there's a purity in something like Substack and something like what Breaking Points has done, which is an entirely crowdfunded, supporters subscription funded thing. But it's because that the content they create is not only consistent, but it's substantive, it's current, it's important, and it's thoughtful. And I think that when you, in an age where people are losing the motivation to create substantive art of any kind,
Yeah.
those who still are trying to are becoming more noticeable.
Yeah.
It's kind of like the last dregs of a dying star. Like we still see that light.
Yeah.
And maybe it will fade eventually, but like the last light that's still there is kind of like maybe I'm being nihilistic, but like our generation, our age group is kind of like, we got on the last life raft from the Titanic before the thing started to fall. And I say that in some way just to be like poetically fun about it, but also in another way, like it's totally probably not true. Like I find so much inspiration from some kids in the younger generations now, and the amount of like awareness that they have at their age for what is happening to our society
Yeah.
before their eyes that I never would have had at that age.
Yeah.
And I probably don't, I probably only have in half of it at now. So that's not to say that nobody after like 30-year-olds is going to be artistically valuable, but on a large scale, it does feel in some way that like there's just no incentive anymore.
Yeah.
Unless you find the incentive in your own community.
Yeah.
Which is what Substack is,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
all you need to have is 1,000 people to pay you $4 a month,
Right.
to be able to live a life doing the thing that you love to do.
Exactly.
Exactly.
But I again, like, I don't know how. I guess OnlyFans is another example of that, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to lambast OnlyFans too much, but I have opinions about it, but I don't know enough about the company as a whole to like. I know there's a lot of non-porn
that's like the selling
on OnlyFans.
point. Like that's the selling point of like these platforms of like Substack, Patreon, OnlyFans. Like I'm grouping OnlyFans in because I think
it's the
people
same
tell
model.
themselves the same thing of like, oh, I just need like 200 dudes to give me $4 a month or whatever, and
Yeah.
suddenly
Suddenly I can
this
pay my
chunk of
rent
change,
and have my life and do whatever I want as long as they keep subscribed.
This has been quite the narrative arc in this episode that we've landed. We started with critiquing the bureaucratic system that is higher education, and now we're talking about the economic model of OnlyFans and why one might sign up for it.
why maybe someone should sign up for it. Why maybe this podcast will be an OnlyFans exclusive podcast.
Yeah.
But I will take off my shirt for $5 and a cowboy hat.
Yes.
Or whatever you send to people on Twitch.
This is a little bit off topic as well, but you watched the new season of Black Mirror, the most recent season?
I have not.
Oh, you
haven't
haven't?
watched it. Oh, shit. Tell me. It's okay.
Okay.
Ruin
All
it
right.
for me.
So, spoiler alert for those that haven't watched Black Mirror. But I feel like there was one episode that got a particular amount of attention, and I think it's because it was the first episode in the season. But it's about this couple, and it's Rashida Jones and then that Irish guy who was in Bridesmaids. You know what I'm talking about? You would know him if you saw him.
You know the Irish guy.
You know the guy. Yeah, you know him.
Yeah. That guy.
But anyway, they're a couple. The wife gets in an accident, and the doctor's basically like, yeah, like we can save your wife and like repair her brain, but she has to be like linked up to this subscription service.
Whoa.
And basically the plot evolves in a way where it's like the subscription service wasn't fully transparent in like the terms of the agreement, and they keep raising the subscription price. And so basically for the wife to continue living and functioning as the wife that he knows, they have to pay more and more every month. And in order to meet those ends, the husband signs up for this platform where people can pay you to do like outrageous things. So it's kind of like to, I don't know, hit yourself in the head with a hammer, or like stick an obscure item in some orifice on your body, like things like that, right? And I just recently saw this last week that there is now a website that is that, where you can pay people to do outrageous dares on a live stream.
Whoa.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
That's so fucked up, dude. I mean, not that it's not new. I mean, I guess the sort of black and white monetary exchange is maybe new, but from a clout perspective, I mean, I don't think that, I mean, that's been what people on YouTube and social media have been doing forever, is like, can I do something very outrageous to garner a certain amount of attention and clout? And then can I utilize that to get sponsorships and become important in the way?
Right.
So it's not new, but the black and white transaction is maybe pretty new, especially
to pay somebody directly to do like a demand
I'll give
of
you $20 to
yeah, because like there are lots of forms of entertainment throughout history where it's like, I'm gonna pay to see this guy in like discomfort,
well,
like what
I mean, it's it's like it's a new form of prostitution. It's like a shame prostitution, or like a embarrassment prostitution. Like I'm just gonna give you money to make you demean yourself in some way.
Things are going great.
Yeah, this is a sad episode.
Well, shall we try to lighten things up?
Yeah, let's lighten things up. Do you want to tell me about your dog?
Dude, my dog is great. A coworker of mine 3D printed a Batman mask.
I saw it
for Ocean, my dog, and I tried to put it on her face, and it didn't fit, and she didn't like it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Isn't that a happy story?
So I killed him. I tried to return the mask. He said no.
Yeah.
I want to go back to what we were talking about. It's messed up, but it's also like, you know, it's important to talk about this shit, I guess. Well, here, you tell me. Well,
I think that it all just to
please
put a point on that. Like again, like there's like a coherent thread throughout this conversation, which is that there are all of these things emerging that are pointing to a society that's like deeply unhealthy and in collapse due to economic instability. You know, it's not the sign of a healthy society that there are people like beating themselves up online for $5.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, and it's crazy. It's crazy to think that, like, not to say it's as simple as that, but the economic instability is obviously like, you know, it's the Jenga brick that someone pulled before the tower gets knocked. And like I do think that, like, if that's the case, and this is one of the reasons that I have conflicting feelings about Mamdani in New York, and I don't know what's going to happen. We haven't tried it yet, really. So like I'm nervous. He's very young, and he hasn't been in politics before, and he's spouting ideas that, like, I don't know if they're going to work or not. But I'm at this point where let's just fucking try it.
Yeah.
You know, like this guy's saying shit that people have been saying isn't going to work forever.
Yeah.
And we've seen in other places it not work. And we've also seen in some places it work, like, all right.
Yeah.
Like, it's okay.
Yeah.
And people always say, like, you know, this kind of socialism isn't going to work in the United States because it's too big.
Mm-hmm.
Sure. Let's try it in a city then.
Yeah.
Let's, like, do it in a city. And this
Yeah.
is a good city to really set an example. If it doesn't work in New York, maybe they're right. But I'm so excited to watch this experiment happen in real time, while the antithesis of that is in the presidential seat, to see directly, like, what is it that the people are going to respond to. Obviously, I mean, this is the first election that I've been a part of as an adult where I was very excited to be a part of it, because I felt like for the first time in I don't know, 15, 16 years of my voting experience, my vote actually, like, mattered.
Yeah.
Where the people that were in control desperately didn't want it to happen, and enough people that weren't in control said "fuck you" anyway, and then it happened.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh, okay, so democracy is real. Like, we can try this thing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, I'm excited, but I'm curious to find out, like, is the economic instability the thing that is causing all of this?
Yeah.
Or is it, like,
something
so much more? Yeah.
Like, I think that the question that it makes me think about is it solely economic instability, or is there sort of like like, one of the things I've been thinking about a lot, just like in my own writing, is kind of like a spiritual deficit. Like, spiritual might not be the right word, like philosophical, spiritual, religious, whatever you want to call it, like a broad kind of blanket deficit on society that is happening at the same time of the economic instability.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, I mean, there has been no, to my knowledge, there has been no, like, long-standing, powerful, stable culture in all of human history that didn't have a religion at its center point.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. And I think that
until
I've always said that I'm actually I like envy religious people that are, like, genuinely religious, because I think it's a comforting thought, and, like, I'm happy for them that they have the ability to, like, turn towards something that provides comfort in times of desperation or unease or, economic hardship. And I do wonder, like, what the compounding effect is on a society that is facing so many hurdles and hardships right now, where, broadly speaking, the younger generations are largely secular and do not adhere to those, like, historically common comfort mechanisms that are largely in the form of religion, but also community and other things like that.
I think that's one of the issues that we're experiencing now in this, and not to say that it's better or worse, but one of the issues that I think we are starting to experience for the first time in this experiment that is American culture, is that when you create an open society that welcomes all different cultures and all different ideas and ideologies and backgrounds and religious sways, you silo communities much more than, like, most other places ever do. So when unifying hurdles do come our way, the communities have been sort of spliced so much, especially in urban areas like the one we're in New York, that the power of, like, a united community exists at, like, a much smaller scale, because all of our communities are kind of spliced into different ways. And it's not by design, but it does lead from the choice that we made to be sort of multicultural in the way that we are. And again, not better or worse, perhaps, but one of the natural like effects of that is that these communities are not going to intermingle in all the same ways that one singular community might.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's good or bad. It's too new to say.
Right.
But
it kind of raises a question of like do you need nationalism, right? Like a national identity to feel like a coherent people, coherent and how disruptive is it if a national identity weakens across time, which like certainly like the American identity has over the last 20 years further back. But
there's this crazy thing about like, so many, as an American man who grew up in the late 90s and 2000s, when national identity was like at one of its peaks in this country, obviously aside from World War II or whatever, but like, the wars that we underwent in the Middle East in the early 2000s were like one of the peaks of national American identity that I can think of.
Of course, yeah.
And as it has begun to decline, it started to make me realize, like, what is the cost of being a member of the global superpower? Aside from the capitalistic sort of rewards that some get, that we advertise, the responsibility is always international as a global superpower, and the domestic population kind of suffers middle sibling problem, like, where we're not sort of prioritized because there's so many pressures globally that we have, many of which we caused, that we now, in order to stay where we are, like, need to be. And I often think, like, maybe it would be so much easier to be Finnish, or somewhere where like we're not in this race.
Yeah,
people are just people, and they're proud to be from where they're from. And what they're most proud about it is that it is, the overarching pacifism that exists within their government.
Yeah,
that we're not fighting these massive wars, and we're not having giant trade wars with China and India, and
Yeah, I mean, I think that largely the world is, for better or for worse, turning inward. So we will see.
How so? Turning inward,
as in like nationalism,
like imploding.
No, not imploding. Like upticks in like populism and like national populism, like in all of these countries. Like you see it in, like, obviously clearly in the U.S. Like Trump's election and Trump's tariffs are all in an effort to like turn inward. We want to bring manufacturing back here. We want to make America great again. We want to cut ourselves off from like the global economic system.
Yeah.
And you do see that happening more and more around the world. Like, we're exiting, I think, a period of globalization as we've known it for the entirety of our lives, because it really picked up like around the time that we were born. And we're now entering into this new phase of a global power and economic order that is probably no longer as reliant as on these like globalized complex supply chains, and will probably look very different moving forward. And I think we're starting to see like the new ways in which that is starting to emerge right now.
I mean, I'm excited to see that.
I'm excited
to know how it goes. I'm excited to find out how the hell that's gonna look, because I don't like how everything looks right now.
Yeah.
It's scary. But I wanna go out of this.
Sorry,
sort of
I carried us.
scale.
I carried us so. I feel like we've carried the conversation so.
I'm so for it, dude. This is what this is all about. That's why I like talking to you.
Yeah.
Because otherwise it would be another episode where I talk about how much I like painting.
Okay.
And
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No.
Boring.
The podcast is art is not sacred, and the last thing I said, I was like, the global economic order
dude,
is collapsing
this
as countries turn inward.
That's why I brought a professor on, so I can learn some shit. But yeah, I want to come back just to like, all of the sort of macro level stuff that we've been talking about for the last hour, starting with the seeming collapse of higher education in the academic world, where does that land you now, as someone who's just entered that space, who is, who has spent the last 10 years of your adult life in school to enter as a professor into that world?
Yeah.
Like, where do you sit now in that?
Well, it's very disorienting. That's for sure. Because and to some extent, I am a member of the narrative paths that we outlined earlier, which is like something along the lines of, if you want to be an academic, you teach, you go to grad school, you get your PhD, and then you land in a spot where you get like a tenure teaching position. It's not a thing anymore.
Yeah.
So especially in the humanities, because the jobs are drying up in that area.
Yeah.
And so in that sense, it's disorienting because the path is not as clear as it once was. But I also feel personally that because of the scale of institutions and what I was describing earlier, like their inability to like keep up with the times and make what they once did really well valuable to a modern cohort of students, because that is becoming increasingly complicated for them, I do see opportunity for somebody like me and my interests, and that's kind of what I'm trying to do with like bringing the humanities, or at least like what I value from the humanities, into like more of like a public open space, and like making it more applicable to the modern day-to-day of somebody.
Yeah.
And so while it is disorienting in that like the traditional path has clearly collapsed, I think there are like new and emerging opportunities to fill in gaps that universities are going to be and inevitably leave behind because they just can't do it.
Yeah,
for a
like
multitude
you said,
of reasons.
They can't write the ship.
Yeah,
that quickly.
exactly. And there's also, there are like political and cultural pressures that make it such that certain content
Kinda
is
handcuff them.
Yeah. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
I just read your most recent article on your Substack. You have to forgive me that the title of which was what again?
When Angels Grow Fangs.
When Angels Grow Fangs. Which in a crude sort of log line, I guess, for it is sort of just an overarching observation of the consequences of uncertainty and the refusal to embrace uncertainty in a culture like we are in now. And then, as you mentioned, like, through narratives like Midnight Mass and like
the Nathaniel Hawthorne, the short story. Yeah, Young Goodwin Brown.
It's funny. I imagine that one of the reasons that we're talking about what we're talking about today is because that is something that you most recently wrote.
Yeah.
Just the general uncertainty of our demographic and where we're standing now. But what prompted you to write that? Like
the most
initially,
recent piece?
Yeah, the When Angels Grow Fangs.
I think it was an idea that really started brewing like back in the second election of Trump in 2024. And then just kind of watching the way in which the broader public is so quick to jump to decisions and determinations around figures online. And it was just a pattern. We've known this for a while, but I just became like, I don't know, obsessed or like acutely aware of it in recent months, especially with like the mayoral race happening here in New York. And typically like the way that these articles formulate for me in my brain is I'll be like thinking about a certain, I don't know, like issue or like philosophical idea that like I've identified in the world that I'm, for whatever reason, captivated by or like confused by, and then eventually what will happen is like I'll naturally draw a connection or find some guidance through whether it's like a literary text or a piece of media. And so, I had been thinking about this idea of how you can have the same figure, and it's not like a particularly complex idea. It's like you can have the same figure and they'll shape shift across time depending on like the media narratives around them, depending on who you're talking to, but it's the same person.
Yeah.
Right. It's just like, and I think that the Americans are uniquely susceptible to like parasocial relationships with figures. I've spoken to this about with people like that are not American, and they also say that like Americans for some reason like romanticize their relationships with public figures in a way that other countries don't.
Well, yeah,
It's kind of interesting. But anyway, so I'd been thinking about this. I'd been thinking about it in relation to obviously Donald Trump, obviously the way in which like they were trying to attempt to make that happen with Kamala Harris, and it didn't, which is interesting. And then I was thinking about it in the most recent like New York mayoral race with figures like Mamdani, and again the attempt to make it happen with Cuomo. And I was literally just scrolling on Twitter, and I saw a clip from Mike Flanagan's Midnight Mass, which I had watched years ago.
Yeah.
And there's like, it's this amazing scene where there is this, for all intents and purposes, a vampire, right? But it's it's in this small church in like this fishing town off the coast of New England, and the townspeople have been convinced that this very clearly aesthetically vampire demonic creature is actually an angel, because it carries many of the same qualities that an angel theoretically carries. Like it's immortal, it can grant miracles by like making other people immortal by biting them and turning them into vampires and so on. And so I don't know, I just like I don't know. To answer your question, I guess it was something on my mind. I eventually came across a piece of media that made me think about it. I happened to also be reading Nathaniel Hawthorne's short stories. Came across Young Goodman Brown, a very similar narrative. And yeah, I think that the attempt is largely to carve out some kind of like spiritual or philosophical understanding of the phenomenon around us, when like I feel like I personally lack one. And so I look to like these media, films, literary texts as like that guidance for me personally.
It's funny you say that, because I feel like, you know, one thing that because I grew up Catholic, and I you know was steeped in religious education as a child. And not that I particularly rejected it, although maybe at some point in my teen years, like I was very antagonistic toward it. It just I never really bought into it. Like it never really sat with me, in a sense that like it didn't provide for me any kind of comfort in the way that I saw my parents receive like a deep sense of comfort and faith from it, and my family and you know, and many of my friends. And for a long time, I was very envious of that. And in some ways I still am. But I also feel that what it did for me at like a young age, sort of not buying in because I didn't understand, it like kind of taught me a deep sense of comfort with uncertainty. You know, because I didn't feel like I was missing something that they were getting. You know, my dad often said to me when I was younger, and I would bring up religious issues and then try to debate him as like any teenage son would. He would often say, like, you know, wait until you lose someone and then tell me if you don't believe in God.
Right. Yeah.
Because until that happens, you don't have a leg to stand on. It's all theoretical for you.
Yeah.
And I often felt like, oh, well, you know, that's the knockout punch. Like I can't have a debate with you because you're right. I haven't experienced that in that way. But at the same time, if the only way this is going to make sense for me is because I need it in order to cope, then that only further validates for me that it's a coping mechanism. You know?
Yeah.
All that is to say that, you know, our culture is steeped in coping mechanisms.
Coping mechanisms, for sure.
You know, left, right, and center, no matter where you look. Like everybody's looking for something to make things feel easier or better. And in a not purely, but largely secular culture now in America, politics has become a placeholder for religion.
Yeah.
You know, social media and media in general has become a placeholder for religion.
Yeah.
Because I do think at some bottom line, like, people do need to have a pillar, like
Yeah.
a foundational anchor
Yeah.
from which to understand things.
Yeah. I think I just find it so odd that people are so, and this was probably another part of the inspiration for the article, but I find it so odd how resistant people are to just saying, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like you see that over and over. It is so rare that I have a conversation with somebody
And they don't know.
and they just say, you know, or even caveat something with saying like, I don't know, but you know, people
Yeah.
are so quick to certainty, and a degree of certainty behind their beliefs that I actually think, I don't know, like weakens their claims or their beliefs in some sense.
Yeah.
You know, because they don't
I
hedge
think
them
so.
at all.
Like, you know, there's that whole idea. I don't know who it's attributed to. I've heard so many different people say it, but like, you know, clean up your own room before you start,
Yeah.
you know, spouting how the world should be. Like, make sure that your own house is in order before you.
Yeah.
But it's true. Like, I've had friends in the past who are so bullheaded and certain about how our country or our culture, our society ought to be,
Yeah.
what is wrong, what is, you know, frankly evil about
Yeah.
what we're doing,
Yeah.
and all the ways. But then I watch them in their own personal life, you know, cheat on their partner or lie to their friend or shirk their responsibilities at work, or, you know, just like little things that speak to one's character on a personal level, day-to-day life, wherein, like, I can't trust or respect your opinion about the world when I don't see you applying those same tenets to your personal life.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, and I don't know. I'm at a place now where, like, I don't trust anyone who's certain about anything.
Yeah.
I don't find it useful. I don't think it's true.
I would say for me, it takes a while for me to trust somebody that's so certain.
Yeah.
You know, like I really want to do my research on this person and like actually read what they have to say before I fully like buy into whatever it is that they're talking about. You know what I mean?
And I don't think it's all snake oil. Like, I
No, I
do
know.
too think that, like, there's many people that I know that are so fervently religious. But I've known them my entire life, and I've watched them walk the walk, and they genuinely live the way that they preach. You know, they practice it, and they are good people.
Yeah.
That I would be honored if someone likened me to them in any way.
Yeah.
And that's when I get to a place where, like, your certainty is expressed in your actions.
Yeah.
So regardless of whether or not it's true,
Yeah.
it's irrelevant because you have lived by this idea that you have given yourself to.
Yeah.
And I can respect that.
Yeah.
But if it's just words to make other people do a thing you think should be done, but you're not doing it yourself,
yeah.
that's when I find it just sort of skeevy.
Yeah. I don't
know?
know. Like, I feel like there's multiple paths that people can take to become so hardened in their convictions. You know what I mean? Like, I do think there's like a brand of person that becomes so certain in a kind of an idea about life because what they've experienced has like traumatized them so much as to like say that like I'm absolutely certain that this is the way that things are. Like, for like, I don't know, if you were like fleeing like a communist regime that like persecuted your family, you're gonna be like, no, communism is like very bad, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think there's this flip side of a person who is absolutely certain in certain beliefs who has never faced any challenge whatsoever to their worldview. And so it's kind of like this, because for me personally, like, I think I've had life experiences that have like shattered my worldview and have therefore given me a view of the world that is like fundamentally like fluid. and like open to like reinterpretation.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so I don't know, I think you get both. You get like the person who is like stern in their convictions because they've actually gone through some level of like real world hardship or something that has given them such stern convictions. And then on the flip side, you have people that are like theoretically stern in their convictions just because they've never been challenged in a real way outside of the theoretical.
Well, you know, if you build a house that's not structurally sound and would like fall apart with the first big wind, but you built it in an area where the wind never blows.
Yeah.
How would you ever know it's not going to hold up?
Right.
You know, and I get that argument. And like when you do face that issue, maybe you'll have to reassess at that point.
Mm-hmm.
But you know, it's all so like ego centric.
Yeah.
Wherein like, you know, if you are the person who has faced some serious trauma in your life,
Yeah.
which I would never attempt to diminish. Like I don't know what you've gone through, and I couldn't put myself in your shoes in that way. But if you have a very concrete sense of how the world operates because of that experience,
Yeah.
you're basing that entirely off of your own personal perception of
Yeah.
like how the world must be because of how you experienced it.
Yeah.
So again, like ego driven in a certain way, and then in the other way, the untested way, it's just because it makes you feel good. You know, people trade ideas like money. And you know, it is a social currency, and like if you have the right idea, you get into the certain room, you know, the passcode, and you get to be in the door. Yeah. And when you build a rigid identity around your ideas, and you feel as though if any of those ideas are altered, then you are no longer the you that you've been pitching to the world. Then the idea might not be the issue, and the wrong and right might not be the issue. It's your sense of value that you've placed on it that is the problem. Yeah, yeah. You know? Like I think being wrong is great. Like,
yeah. I mean, part of this opinion and again the inspiration comes from me being wrong so many times. You know, and thinking back on that and being like, oh, I was so sure in that moment. Yeah. You know, but reflecting to say, wow, maybe I shouldn't have been so sure. You know, I should have been more open to receiving feedback or listening, you know, to somebody that had a different opinion or view on something, you know?
Oh yeah. I mean, I do think that like there's an extreme to the opposite end of that too, where like I have through most of my life, I'm not an overwhelmingly confrontational person, and I don't really feel as though anyone ought to act a certain way because I think that's the right way. Yep. And that has made me a pushover in many ways because of it. You know, like I don't get mad at someone when they cut me off in traffic because I just assume they've got somewhere they have to be and they're not paying attention, and that's fine. Like, it's fine. Just keep going. Like, I'm not going to waste my energy on that.
Is it something like empathetic to a flaw, like empathetic to your own detriment, perhaps?
It's, you know, I would say that there's a line. I feel like the use of the word empathy, it kind of muddies the water because empathy is such a goal for so many people. Yeah. That I don't know if empathy is really what it is. I think it's like it's an acknowledgement of my own fallibility to such an extent that it makes me unsure of my perspective at like any turn. Yeah. Because I'm so convinced that I could be wrong. Yeah. I am hesitant to make a stance on most things until I fully fleshed out the idea.
And you also don't want to wind up in a place where that line of thinking leads to, well, I don't care about anything. Yeah, right? Because if I can't be sure on anything, then I might as well just be nihilistic about everything and just say, well, everything's unknown, everything's untangible, you know?
I spent a long time feeling that way. Yeah. And questioning, like, you know, I watch somebody fall so passionately in love with someone and then their heart is so deeply broken because of it. And you know, and you think, like, they're so angry because this person deceived them in whatever way. Yeah. And my instinct immediately is like, I doubt that this person set out to deceive me. Yeah. Or hurt me. Like, I'm certain that they're just also trying to be happy. Yeah. They thought I was the antidote to their problem, and they discovered when we signed the mutual contract to try together, they discovered I wasn't. Yeah. And I'm a casualty of that love, sure, but it wasn't their goal. Yeah. So I have no reason to be mad at them for it, even though they maybe lied to me and tried to get out of it because they didn't want to hurt me or embarrass themselves, whatever it is. But my mind immediately goes to how can I justify and appease their actions and their feelings, because I can deal with my own myself. I don't need to foist them upon someone else.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, totally.
And I do think that that's like the opposite extreme. And there's somewhere in the middle where you have to like acknowledge.
I agree.
Like, I'm not always right. But the fact that I feel.
Is that a battery thing?
One of the cameras died.
Yeah. Well, we're back. We're back. You know, art is not sacred.
Actually, now that we're an hour and a half in,
yeah,
I want to ask you, do you think art is sacred?
Do I think that art is sacred? Can you explain what you mean by sacred in the context of that?
I will explain after, but you tell me in your context.
So I think it depends on how you are using it, the term sacred, right? Because the name of the podcast is Art is Not Sacred, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you want all right, I'll qualify it so you don't waste an explanation. I'm telling you that's not what I'm talking about. You'd be like, all right, well, I wouldn't have fucking said that if you'd told me. So when I first decided to make this podcast, it was because I had done an art show down in Soho.
Yep.
And I called it Art is Not Sacred.
Mm-hmm.
And I liked the idea. I thought it was like a controversial and like interesting.
Yeah, it's fun. Yeah,
powerful,
it's
like
engaging,
just thing to say about art because a lot of people disagree. What it is to me is that art has been commodified to an extent where, and not just commodified, but even like historically, like we as artists, as creators, as fans of art, look at successful artists, famous artists, as sort of like these
deities,
these like creators of this incredible historical relics from the time that we can't have access to, windows to a world that you ogle and you praise them in this way, that you look at Monet's work, or you look at Renoir, or like anyone who's in these museums and anything, and I feel like what that does when you put a piece of art behind glass and like put it in a museum behind velvet ropes, it puts people in a position of like subordination to the work.
Sure. Yeah.
That makes it inaccessible, which I think as an artist was probably never the intent of the artist, was for their work to be looked at in that way.
Yeah.
And I think that culturally, the way we've commodified certain art and the way that we have sort of bolstered certain artists and certain works, we've turned it into a thing where like art is meant to be ogled. It's not meant to be communed with. And when you make something sacred as a common person, you no longer are worthy of fully sort of understanding it, because you're looking at it through a scope of like, this is something I could never do.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
And I find that not useful.
In that sense, I do agree with that, but I can reframe it in a way that I could make the argument that I do think that it is sacred.
You wouldn't be the first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Everyone I've asked this question always says, you're wrong.
Oh, really?
Well,
really?
no, they agree with that part, but then
they give. Well, so I probably then am like beating a dead horse, and somebody else has probably said some version of the same thing. But I think that art can be like a subjectively sacred experience to an individual, you know? So I think that we can personally hold pieces of artwork, whether it is a painting, a song, a composition, a text, and those can feel very sacred to us as an individual. But that's a use of the word sacred in a slightly different way. Functionally, how I'm using sacred there is like art can feel sublime to a person. Like it can feel just personally so important and so weighty, to the point where like it brushes up against what I imagine people feel when encountering a sacred text as like a devout believer. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I don't think that is something that necessarily happens at scale objectively. It clearly does happen at scale to some extent, because there are these certain relics of art that for whatever reason resonate. But I think that if you were to, even with like those pieces of art where it's like objective enough that if you like surveyed like 10 people, they'd be like, this is amazing. But I think if you dug into it a bit more, they'd have a different reason as to why it was amazing, you know?
Yeah.
And so in that sense, I think like the sacred nature of art is entirely dependent on you as an individual and how you experience the work. It could be sacred to you,
Yeah.
you know? And I say all of that agreeing that like, I think it's fucking stupid kind of to put artists up on a pedestal in a way where you make them into gods and deities and make it such that their creations, their entire being is something that's like unreachable or untenable for you, the peasant, you know? So I do agree with that. So I think it's two different things, right? I think it's like art is not sacred in the sense that you're describing. I agree with that. But art can feel like a sacred experience in the same way like a religious experience or a psychedelic experience could feel sacred to you, and subjectively, the individual.
I think too that, like, you know, contradicting the title of my own show, it is like the whole reason that anyone becomes an artist is because they have experienced that sacred relationship to some art.
Yeah.
Otherwise, why would you invest your time in making other art if you hadn't seen or felt the power of some other art in the past? Especially in a world today now where, like,
although,
you know,
I do think if an artist came to me and said, my art making process is sacred, bro, I'd be like, shut the fuck up, man.
It should never. Yeah. Dude, that's just pretension to the level.
You know what I
of,
mean? Like I completely agree, and in some sense, I feel that. You know, like I would be that guy to be like, no, me writing this poem, it's very meaningful to me.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you have to have like some degree of humility as an artist and recognize that, like,
well, it's one of
playing,
those things,
right? You're playing, like you're playing with words, or you're playing with colors, or you're playing with sound. Like that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I do think like there's probably some level of benefit to taking yourself a little less seriously.
Yeah.
You know?
I will say that, like, one of the most impactful things that has happened in my adult life as an artist is one of our friends told me that they think poetry is stupid.
Yeah, I know who it is.
and it, like,
let me look at the camera. I know who it is. I know who it is.
And it shattered my sense of value in this thing that I was doing, because I respect them so much as a writer and as an artist. And so when they didn't respect this form of art that I like so much, and sparingly will compliment anything that I've written in that medium of poetry, I spent a time where I was like, I don't, like, maybe I shouldn't, maybe it's not worth doing because maybe they're right.
Yeah.
And it really took a while, but I got to this space where, like, oh, this is exactly what art is. Like, this is the perfect example for me of, you know, what floats one's boat might not float another's. And like this, I will read 5 lines of a poem and feel this clear connection to a moment, an emotional place that someone was in this sort of isolated moment in their life.
Yeah.
I might not know anything else about their entire life. They might have died 150 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know anything about their circumstances, but I read these 5 lines and I felt what they felt.
Yeah, totally. No,
and that is, you know, that's time travel to me.
Yeah.
But for them, it's not that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, you and I are in complete agreement on when it comes to the poetry. I think that the ability for a poet to express and articulate themselves in such a condensed nature of language in a way that not only is an attempt to convey like whatever inner turmoil or currents they're experiencing, but also like the best poetry resonates with the reader in a way that perhaps captures or makes them think about the author itself, but also finds some sort of like resonance with what they're experiencing
Yeah.
internally in such a condensed modality.
Yeah.
Like the most condensed and weighty form of language itself.
Well, you're a gymnast with words. Like when you watch, an Olympic gymnast
Yeah.
move their body in ways that you could never fathom moving your body. Like the way that I look at words, like, when you're writing a script or you're writing a book or whatever, like you're taking a landscape and you're excavating and you're building a structure that anyone could come into and feel welcome,
Yeah.
But when you're writing poetry, like you're making words do things that they're not supposed to do and that they weren't designed to do, and you're putting them in places where no one has, the general reader wouldn't have considered even thinking of this word in that way. And then all of a sudden it hits them in conjunction with a few other words or with relationship to the context of the last line, and you all of a sudden feel it and you're like, oh my God. And
so in that sense, I like what you're describing. I think that poetry is probably the most vulnerable to being dismissed as an art form.
Yeah.
Because it seems like low barrier to entry, because it's like, oh, everybody can write, everybody can string words
Poetry
together.
is
Sorry, I interrupted.
No, continue.
I was going to say, and also because of its highly subjective nature, you really have to seek out poetry that resonates with you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But I don't know. I just find the use of language in poetry to be fascinating to me. It's always been fascinating to me.
Yeah.
And because I'm very interested in like linguistic connotations and like how everybody has their own associations with words. I just find that, like, because words are how we name the world, and like both the outer world and our inner world, and yet,
how we understand
and that
anything.
they're fallible. They're weak. They're not like perfect tools, and so by their nature, they're like not going to be a perfect one-to-one. Like if I say cow to you, you're going to think of a certain picture of a cow, and I'm going to think of a certain picture of, like, they're imperfect tools.
Yeah. And that's a benign example, but like you take that up the ladder to, like, when a 17-year-old says to another 17-year-old for the first time in their life that they love them.
I know. Yeah.
That person says, "Oh my God, I love you too." But when you say "I love you" to me, I hear you say love with my definition of love.
Yes.
And now I expect you to uphold my definition of love, because you told me that you love me.
Right.
And I only know that word one way.
Right.
So
exactly.
You break my heart because you lied to me by telling me that you knew my definition.
Yeah.
Unknowingly.
Yeah.
And then and so slowly over all of the years as you get older and older, and I think that what age and wisdom and like learning how to communicate with people really is sort of
it's kind of
breaking
like
down the walls of your definitions of the words, and understanding that, like, no meaning that I have to anything is more right than someone else's.
Yeah.
And I have to choose between a rigid and safe structure that I've built to define the world around me and relationships with people.
Yeah.
And the more wrong I'm willing to be about my definition, the closer I can be to you.
Right.
And that's the scariest thing.
Yeah. Like, this is the deep sense of what it means to miscommunicate. You know what I mean? Like, when people say miscommunication, I feel like what they think of is like, oh, I wasn't as clear as I could have been, or perhaps I left a couple of details out. And it's like, no, what miscommunication really is, like at a fundamental level, are the words that I'm communicating to you. You're not hearing them in the way that I understand them.
Yeah.
Like, the intentionality behind them is not.
And you have a
coming through.
relationship to them that I don't have.
Right. And so like I know, like, personally speaking, like in my with my partner, like I find myself constantly saying, well, what do you mean by that? Before I try to say that, because we're all human, right? And so sometimes when you hear something, you're going to have a kind of like a knee jerk reaction. But sometimes I hear something and I say, what exactly do you mean by that? Because I'm aware that like my understanding of some of the words that like, it's going to be fundamentally different. I need more data to work with. I need more of like what you're saying. Like, can you try to explain it another way?
Yeah.
I wish more people recognized that shortcoming that we all have. It's not unique, or it's not a deficit to any one person. It's like all of us, like baked into us. It's how we navigate the world.
I find, and this is maybe an aside to that comment, or a little bit of a tangent on that line, but I find it such a detriment personally to my ability to experience other people as fully as I want to, that I am monolingual.
Oh yeah,
The fact that we living in New York, we have many friends who speak multiple languages.
Yeah.
My cousins speak 5.
Yeah.
Our friend Gianni's dad, he speaks 5 languages.
Yeah.
And like every time I meet someone who speaks that many languages, I can't help but assume that their understanding of each word comes with 5 different flavors.
Yeah.
And their understanding of each concept and how to communicate each concept comes with all these different flavors. And if I knew even one more language, I feel like I would understand my own language so much more clearly.
Totally. I think about it all the time when I'm reading like translated texts. Mm-hmm. My favorite book is a translated text.
Mine too.
And
what's your favorite book?
Well, The Unbearable Lightness of Being.
Oh yeah,
which is not originally written in English.
Czech, or
it may have been written in French originally, because he wrote it when he was living in France. I'd have to go back and double check. I can't remember if he originally wrote it in Czech but either way, it wasn't written in English. But yeah, I took a whole class when I was in undergrad, theories of a translation. Like there's a whole world of what we're talking about here. Which is all about like what is the appropriate way to actually translate a text. Like how do you do it? Because again, like just like we're even in this is the craziest thing, even in the same language, right? Even in English, what we're describing right now is there is no one-to-one way that I can clearly articulate exactly what I'm thinking to you.
Yeah.
In a way that you're going to completely and totally understand.
Well, because what you're thinking to me is already a diluted variant of what you're feeling.
That's what I'm saying, right? So like I have to frame it within these boxes of words to you. Mm-hmm. Then imagine trying to do that from another language to a secondary language.
Yeah.
Wherein
concepts and sentence structure aren't even one-to-one at
because,
all.
Like there's so many. I find this shit so fast. There's so many cultural connotations to words, right? Like if you took the phrase and directly translated like when pigs fly into Chinese, like I don't know if that's gonna like if they were like, oh, like somebody asked you like, oh, I wonder if the bus is ever gonna be on time, and you rolled your eyes and you said when pigs fly.
When pigs fly.
Like I don't know if that would work. There's like all these different like linguistic games and like cultural connotations and phrases.
Well,
and
even
like
gendered nouns in Romance languages, like you look at them and
but
you
even
think, wow.
like you were describing, like there are languages and cultures that are just like more romantic than others or more platonic than others. Mm-hmm. And so the word love is used very differently, right? Depending on the cultural context that you grow up in. Like in English, for example, like we tend to reserve love. I love you for like a romantic partner or a very deep partner. But there are other cultures where love is tossed around much more like frivolously, could be used in a much more platonic and common way. And so if you're reading a translated text from that, you get what I'm saying.
And like, in English, not just love itself, but like the physical associations that we have with love is, we come from such a puritanical background in our in our culture that like when we utilize the word love, we are associating with it physical love in a way that so many other countries wouldn't associate physical love, physical, intimacy with the word love. But but in our culture, we reserve physical intimacy in many ways with love.
Right.
And one of the biggest sort of conflicts that we have or disconnects that we have in our culture today is exactly that. It's one of the biggest cultural and political issues that we have is monogamous marriage and traditional married culture and what love is supposed to be, and having children and sex out of wedlock and all these things that we fight about in our culture is because of this like this rudimentary disconnect in what we mean by commitment and love and physical intimacy with another person. Sexually or otherwise. But we've associated these things. And because we define all of our relationships through these words, all of our actions that we have are ultimately going to be received and parsed apart through words with whatever variant of a definition the person receiving it is going to have. So it's always broken. It's impossible to fully connect with a person unless you're willing to play that game with them and say like, my word's not your word. Let's like come up with a new word.
Like splorking.
Yeah, like splorking. I splork you so much. Dude.
So that's just to say, to circle right back around, that is why I think poetry is impressive and important. Because there's so much room for failure with language and words and the precision of it. It's really something else sometimes,
And because it's not, one of the things I love about poetry so much is that it's not trying to, most of the time, it's not trying to tell you a story. It's trying to bring you to a moment or a feeling or a pain, a confusion or something that you're experiencing outside of context, in a vacuum. Like poetry can be understood in a vacuum. And I think that there's so much beauty in, reading Beowulf today and reading just a couple lines of this like epic poem and feeling the exact same thing on a Monday after you get out of work that you might from some stanza in a poem from 1,000 years ago. And like that is magic. And stories do it too, but it's just a different thing.
There's much more room for interpretation. Like it's both precise and imprecise again, in that like it's so much, there's so much space to, again, like what I was saying before, like you can both understand the author and like, but also there's room and space in poetry to like project yourself into the poem and consider the ways in which the words like provoke something within you. And then interrogate that, I think. And
not even deal with the author's intentions for a long time. I mean, my favorite poet, one of my favorite poets, and certainly my favorite for the last decade, has been this poet, Stephen Crane, this American writer. And I didn't know anything about him for the first like 5 or 6 years that I loved his writing. I didn't even, I was young and self-involved and didn't even take the time to consider learning about the author of the writer of the writings I was loving, but I just loved the words and I loved them for me. Because they just hit me. And the art itself did that without any context from the artist,
I've had similar experiences with like artwork and not knowing who the artist is. And it's led me to believe, I know this is kind of like trite, this discussion of like, can you separate the artist from the artwork? But based on what you're describing and in my own experiences, I've always believed that you can, right? Like that separation is entirely possible and perhaps should be seeked out or sought out.
I think that not only can you do it, it is the instinct. Like, I think that the art is first separated from the artist, and then you have to make a decision to connect the two.
Well, sometimes, right? Because sometimes,
Yeah.
like, look at films. It's like directed by Steven Spielberg,
Mm.
right? It's plastered. That's the selling point of the film, right? So sometimes
Yeah.
advertising gets in the way of that, I think.
Yeah, but that's a decision that someone made. Like,
Yeah.
I've watched films that I didn't know who directed it,
Yeah.
and I never would have even thought about who directed it. I just loved the film.
Yeah.
And, again, that is, as an artist who wants to be able to make a living as an artist, that is probably bad to say as a fan of art, that, like, I don't make the effort sometimes to learn about the artist who
Yeah.
created the thing that I love. I'm embarrassed to say that, like, I couldn't name the members of my favorite band.
Hmm.
I've never tried. I've never even looked them up. I don't even know what they look like.
Right.
But it's my favorite band. I listen to them every day.
Yeah. Yeah.
But I have not thought about
Yeah.
the artist.
Yeah.
I've only enjoyed the music as it has come out.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, again, I'm embarrassed to say that, because I would never want someone to love my work and not know who I am.
Yeah.
But it does speak to the value of the art itself.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, once you release it and share it, it doesn't have to have any relationship to you anymore.
Yeah.
Because my relationship with a painting or with a film or a play or whatever ends
Mm-hmm.
when I finish doing it.
Yeah.
And then whatever happens to it after, great. But, like,
Yeah.
it's that practice that so many sculptors, talk about, or painters, whatever. Like, can you paint something that you've spent months working on and then destroy it when you're done and be fine with that?
Yeah.
Can you really let it go when it's out?
Yeah.
And that practice in and of itself, to come full circle, I guess, I think that practice is sacred. The
Yeah.
true exorcism of
The person
the
behind
heart
it.
of
Yeah.
the work.
Yeah.
Really, really leave it once it's out.
Yeah.
So you're welcome, Manchester Orchestra, for not knowing anything.
I used to be more interested in learning about the biographies when I was young. I think that's a younger person thing. You're looking for role models, right?
Yeah.
And so I remember, like, linking on to certain figures, like musicians and writers, and being, like, very interested in, like,
Yeah.
their upbringing and where they studied and what drugs
Why are
they
you this
did.
way?
Yeah,
Yeah,
why are
what
you
drugs?
this? Because
Yeah.
I want to be that way. you
Yeah.
know?
What can
And-
I do to be more like you?
Right. And I think
Yeah.
I think it's a natural, or people should get to a point where you sort of like I don't know, I don't know, like it's okay to, it's probably a good thing to have role models, but you don't want to, like, design your life in a way that's, like, trying to follow the rules of somebody else's life.
Yeah. But I think contrary to that, it is also, some of the greatest artists that I know, again, to talk about that same friend, one of the greatest artists I know, one of the reasons he's one of the greatest artists I know is because he is such a dedicated student of his craft.
Yeah.
And as a writer, he is such an avid reader,
Yeah.
such an avid student of film and scripts. And, I don't know a film that he has watched and that he admired that he hasn't then gone and read the screenplay of after. And that
That's
kind
like-
of, like, chase of the
yeah.
craft.
Right.
What were you gonna say?
I was gonna say, I guess, like, in what I'm saying, I'm, like, distinguishing between, like, studying a craft and, like,
Studying the person.
yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think we should wrap this up because that battery's about to die.
Oh,
I'm watching
okay.
it flash.
Oh yeah, brother.
Are there
All right.
any? Tell us about where people can find you, your Substack, who anything.
Dude, you can find me. Just Google Grant David Crawford. That'll probably bring you to either my Rate My Professor. You can leave me a nice Rate My Professor rating because they're not always nice. You can find me on Instagram, Grant David Crawford, Twitter, at Hi Grant Crawford. But most importantly, the main thing I'm focusing on right now is the Substack. It's called Fugitive Margins, fugitivemargins.substack.com. It's linked on all my social media, so if you find that, you'll find it there.
I'll link it on this as well.
Yeah, link it there. Would love to have some more readers. So if you're interested, doesn't cost anything to subscribe. You can pay, but you don't have to.
Hell yeah. Dude, I love you. I splork you.
Thanks. I splork you too. We didn't even get a chance to talk about the new Frankenstein. But
I know, what the heck.
We'll have to save it for next time.
Yeah, we'll save it for next time. Episode 5.
Yeah, episode 5.
The direct next episode with Grant Crawford again.
An analysis, a textual.
There it is.
Good
We'll
timing,
finish
yeah.
this on your frame.
Okay.
I'll just
the other camera died, so peace
So now
out.
we're both here.
Yeah, love y'all. Subscribe to Art is Not Sacred. Whether you agree with that claim or not, you know.
And to Fugitive Margins.
Yeah. All
All right. See you guys.
right. Bye.
Bye.